Hey guys, it's me, Gabriel, coming to you with your evening spark. So, your religion, your experience. One thing that's come to my awareness about religion um, is, well, I would say this does come to my awareness, but it's more about, what is religion? What is the purpose and function of religion? Because there's, especially, just chiming in on the Christian nation as a whole. I think there's like over 10,000 different types of Christian religions and things like that. There's over 1,000 to be sure. You'll have to fact check me on that, but there's a lot. That's the point. And it seems kind of confusing then, because people say, well, just a lot of Christians would say, oh, don't be a Muslim or don't be a Buddhist because those aren't going to make it to heaven. But then we look at our end and it's like, well, do we even have a concise understanding? And what does that mean then? Sure, there's got to be one that's right. The Mormons are very quick to state, "Oh, ours is the right one. Others have pieces of the table, but we got the whole pie, as it were." They make the analogy of a table of glass broken, and where a lot of Christian religions have pieces of it, or different religions just in general. The Mormon religion has them all, but that's not the point. It just goes to show, it's just like, there's different religions that have different beliefs, and then they have different ways that they may baptize people, or not at all, or they have a different understanding of it, And it's like, well, how do we know which one is the right one? And here's the thing that's crazy, is it's like, if there's one religion you gotta go to, and then you look at these other religions, and it's like within Christianity, and you see, okay, why is it that they need to be different? If you guys are both agreeing about these really cornerstone dynamics, why is it necessary to have to branch off and make your own religion? Because it seems like it's just shattering, it's splintering things more and more, so it creates a lot more confusion. That's why it's like, for all this stuff, like with the Benevolent Wolfpack, I would be really resistant to turn this into a religion to the degree that I don't want it to become some formulaic type thing. But I will admit that the virtues of the Wolfpack, they transcend the boundaries that the Christian nation would allow. For instance, stating that we're all the sons of God. That hell is not real. Hell's unreality, rather. It exists in the same thread that you can believe in illusion. And we surely do, because we're here, or else we wouldn't be here. And we recognize that, we're as God created us. I think if you look within the Bible, there is stuff that a lot of it does support it. It's based off of your interpretation. You take some of the stuff you take what Jesus says, and he could be looked at as a very hateful person. When some dude had his father dead, he said, "Can I first bury my father and then follow you?" He's like, "No. Let the dead bury their own." That can sound pretty harsh and almost like, Jesus, I thought you were all about forgiveness and love and mercy. But you got to understand about that, like, when someone was dead, well, from what I've come to understand about that passage, without getting too thick in the weeds, is that his father wasn't necessarily dead, but it was kind of like, he's going to die soon, can I wait? And it was kind of like, you got to live more for the living and recognize that you're not here for the dead. You're here for, the living God. And I think it's more about recognizing, shifting people's perspective of the dead, and then there's the whole sleeping dynamic that people aren't really dead. But that's not the point. The point I'm trying to get to with all this, I think I got a little off topic there, is that, yeah, it can seem kind of confusing. And I would say that in regards to like the Wolfpack, is that a big dynamic of what we try to emphasize is the spiritual spectrum, and how it's transcending beyond religion and recognizing that it's really just an experience. Your religion is your experience, as it were. That's why formal religion, like these Orthodox people, it's like, it has no place in healing nor in true religion. So that being the case, think about it. There's plenty of things within religion that have nothing to do with healing. Just as there's stuff in healing that has nothing to do with religion. And yet, that doesn't take away from the fact that you can still be in a religion. But I think one should recognize that these differing religions, because there's so many of them, even within Christianity, I've come to start to see it as there was a person or set of people who felt that this was their experience they needed to have, and that it wasn't being satisfied in the direction that this train of thought, this collective belief was going. And then by the ways of this world where things manifest, progressively, like you do when you want to get your college degree, and it manifests itself through a period of years, 4 give or take years, as it were. But that's not the point. The point is that it manifests itself in the shape of a religion. But I think in order to reach an ascended state of spirituality, it's imperative to be able to go beyond the lower levels of experience that religion may offer. And often it is. See, it's not even necessary to believe in God. Now this is gonna blow some people's minds. And I preface this with, like, do not get offended. Do not just be like, fuck this guy, he's going to hell. Here's the thing. God says, be still and know that I am God. He doesn't say, be still and believe that I am God. God is beyond belief. Here's the thing. If God was based off of our belief and whether or not we would experience his love, because the rain falls on the good, the just, and the unjust. The resurrection will come of the just and the unjust, as spoken of Paul in Acts. You can look it up. Now, people might say that upon the resurrection, they will then be sentenced to hell upon that point, but then that gets into the dynamic of purgatory, which again isn't in line necessarily with what a lot of Christians may seem to believe, because then that adds another complication. Well, it's like, then you line yourself with the Catholic belief, but then that's a whole nother mess. See what's happening, folks? You introduce a few passages here and there with a certain perspective and interpretation, and it suddenly blows everything out of proportion. Or not proportion, but perspective. And you're like, wow, well, if we want to say we believe this and all that, yeah, stuff can get a little complicated, y'all. Especially seeing how a lot of that stuff that we've come to know is, all these rules and doctrines. It's like, where do they even come from? If you think about it, all these rules that we have, we say maybe they were God ordained and he blessed us through this understanding and discernment. And yeah, that may be true, but you also got to look at it as, the salt of the world, in the sense that if you just keep the same rules from hundreds, thousands of years ago, and you don't change anything, and you don't allow it to change to the needs of the people for which it's supposed to heal and reach, then the salt loses its flavor and needs to be cast out. So there's a constant sense of changing. That's why formal religion is very much so limited and contradictory in its nature, because it's set in these like archaic rules that very well could be changed, but they all too often won't, because when you put that stamp of God on it, it doesn't allow any room for progress or progressiveness, or for the ever-changing dichotomy of the Holy Spirit and the Christ. You can't limit it to these set, this is how it has to be. It is beyond one religion. To say that the Christ is exclusive to Christians is vanity. To say that, nothing less of the fact that if Christians were to disappear, that the Christ would die, that's ridiculous. But that's the notion that we come to know. But then they also say that, well, God will help those atheists. He'll help those non-believers. But once, he'll love them. But once they die, then it's over. At an unset period of time where we don't know when it's going to happen. But then we were also allowed to be created in this world in God's supposed image. And yet the complete reversal of what this, image of God is, sin, sickness, and death. And it's like, why would God allow that to be put into creation to begin with? What, to just glorify him? God is beyond an ego. He doesn't need glorification. He doesn't need temples made of hands. He doesn't need all these acts. He doesn't need all that. God is perfect. He is all. He is only to be known. He can only be but known. And so the dynamic also of belief with God is that if you can believe, it then denotes its sense of unbelief. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. It's like, God doesn't just suddenly stop being God if you don't believe in him. Now there's certain, I think, it is very much so helpful, and eventually we all will progress towards the path of truth. We always are. We may seem to retrograde for a time. Maybe we leave a religion, or we don't. We change religions. We stop religion altogether. But eventually, religion will fade away. There's not going to be like, only the Methodists go to heaven. That's it. Come on now. And there's more. Remember, we're all in this, we all have our own relationship with God. But I would say that regardless of your religion or whatever it may be, the cornerstone requisite, I would say, out of all of it, though, is that you teach forgiveness and not condemnation. Because think about it, if a religion's teaching condemnation, is it really, preaching, is it upholding the validity and truth of God? I could go about all this stuff for a hot minute, so we're going to eventually cut it here pretty soon. But it's just, there's plenty of religions that preach that kind of condemnation, and I feel like they don't understand the truth of what Jesus is about. The fact that Jesus on the cross said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And I think that's kind of important to talk about that on the eve of his of the celebration of his resurrection of Easter. The fact that was one of his last words he spoke on the cross shows that even when he was faced with the utmost persecution, that was still his resonating thing. He didn't say, "God, destroy these people." No, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." That is the true point of our existence and the manner in which we should go about our business. Think about it. You can say you have Father, I love you, and all this stuff, but you don't love your brother, the person sitting next to you. How does that reflect how you supposedly believe in God? It's kind of like, you believe in me, but yet you hate my brother? You judge him and condemn him? But would you condemn God? I surely hope not. It wouldn't do you much good. But by your condemnation of your brother, you in turn are condemning God. Because what you do to one, you do to all. What you do to the least, you do to me. By me, I mean Jesus. For the Christ is all and everywhere, friends. Even some people may close off their awareness of him. You can't stop him from still flowing in. You can stop him. You can close the door, but he's gonna find a way to get in and still love you. You can create this wall, but he can go around it, because there's no wall big enough and long enough that can keep out the ever eternal arms of God. And that's the biggest thing. So there's a lot more to unpack with all this. I've been going for a hot minute. I had considered to make this a morning boost, but I figured this is something that is worth, I want to say, immortalizing, by that of having it on YouTube and having it, so that way, if 10 years down the line, you can still see this video where I'm morning boost on Facebook Live. It's, one and done kind of thing. And I think this message is definitely worthy of being remembered. Not by my perception, but that, it's worth having people be able to see it down the line. Because this stuff's important, and I think it's needed. I think, whatever your religion may be, if you're preaching and teaching forgiveness, then you know God. Because wherever there's truth, wherever there's forgiveness, that's where truth is. And this is the thing. No one who learns to forgive can fail to remember God. And that's why forgiveness is the only thing that needs to be taught, because that's the only thing that needs to be learned. So, that's what I got for you. So go forward and just recognize, it takes a big load off, man. It's my experience, how I'm coming to know God, however it may be. And we're always moving forward under that eternal day. God set eternity in our hearts, friends. So, time is a temporary thing. But God, he's going to keep on rolling with us no matter where we're at. Passing circumstances don't change who we are. So, follow me on Facebook on the Benevolent Wolfpack. And, keep spiritually trekking on. All right. Wolfpack out. Peace, friends.